पर्यावरण नाशेन नश्यन्ति सर्वजन्तवः पवनः दुष्टतां याति प्रकृति विकृतायते. Due to pollution of our environment, all beings are destroyed. The winds get vicious and the nature becomes hostile. Our world, as we know, it is facing multiple existential threats. This planetary emergency grows more pressing with every passing day. Biodiversity loss is weakening our economies and undermining the well-being of billions of people. Pollution is now taking 9 million lives every year. And for entire nations, rising sea levels, droughts, and floods are becoming an existential risk. In its Global Risk Report 2024, the World Economic Forum singled out extreme weather as the topmost risk for the coming year, far ahead of armed conflict and economic downturns. Our action in the next years will determine our future. We need a radical change in our relationship with the planet. What we need is a more systematic effort to address the three pillars of sustainable development at the same time: the economic, the social, and the environmental. Nature is a crucial ally in tackling climate change, absorbing carbon, regulating natural processes, and helping us to adapt. Amid the climate and biodiversity crisis, nature-based solutions are increasingly seen as important to reduce the impacts of climate change as well as to protect environment, ecosystem, and biodiversity. The latest IPCC report demonstrated that nature-based solutions among the top 5 most effective strategy for mitigating carbon emissions by 2030. Hi, my name is Dr. Shruti Sharma, and today I'm going to talk about what exactly are nature-based solutions and how they are making a difference. The Paris Climate Agreement commits to keep global warming below 2 degrees centigrade and to pursue efforts to limit warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade. The actions of the international community between now and 2030 will determine whether we can collectively show warming enough to avoid the worst impacts of climate change. Above the 1.5 degree limit, the risk of extreme weather and collapsing ecosystems grow. Nature-based solutions are for both mitigation and adaptation, and they serve as an integral piece of the required global response for climate change. Nature-based solutions can address climate change in 3 ways: decrease greenhouse gas emissions related to deforestation and land use, carbon and store carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. They can enhance resilience of ecosystem and as such support societies to adapt to climate hazards such as flooding, sea level rise, and more frequent and intense droughts, floods, heat waves, and wildfires. According to International Union for Conservation of Nature, IUCN, nature-based solutions could deliver emission reduction and removal of at least 5 gigaton carbon dioxide equivalent per year by 2030. Now, this is of a maximum estimate of 11.7 gigaton carbon dioxide emissions per year. Nature-based solutions could reduce the intensity of climate and weather-related hazards by 26%. Nature-based solutions could provide developing countries with valuable protection against the economic cost of climate change, saving at least $104 billion in 2030 and $393 billion in 2050. Over 3.3 billion people live in places that are highly vulnerable to climate change, India being one. From 2010 to 2019 alone, sudden onset climate change and weather-related disasters killed more than 410,000 people. Now, no country should have to choose between fighting poverty and fighting for the planet. Now, going by the definition, nature-based solutions are the ones that address societal challenges through actions to protect, sustainably manage, and restore natural and modified ecosystem, benefiting people and nature at the same time. Nature-based solutions target major challenges like climate change, disaster risk reduction, food and water security, biodiversity loss, and human health are critical to sustainable development. For example, a common problem is the flooding in coastal areas that occurs as a result of storm surges and coastal erosion. Now, this challenge, traditionally tackled with man-made, which is grey infrastructure such as seawalls or dikes, coastal flooding, can also be addressed by actions that take advantage of ecosystem services such as tree planting. Now, planting trees that thrive in coastal areas known as mangroves reduce the impact of storm on human lives and economic assets and provides a habitat for fish, birds, and other plants supporting biodiversity. Estimates suggest that nature-based solution can provide 37% of the mitigation needed until 2030 to achieve the targets of the Paris Agreement. Now, how can this be done? If you plant trees, they are going to soak up carbon. For example, restoring native forest at the margins of the river to avoid landslide can also act as a carbon sink. Climate smart agriculture is another example that enables farmers to retain more carbon in their fields as they produce crops. Decreasing deforestation is another way to benefit from nature-based solutions. For example, by paying farmers not to cut down the forest, preserves ecosystem services such as carbon sequestration, provision of clean drinking water, and reduction of river sedimentation downstream. But it is not automatic that everything you plant becomes a nature-based solution that contributes to biodiversity. For example, this is discussed widely. Planting trees that are not from the region and are toxic to local animals would not generate biodiversity benefits. All pathways to achieving the Paris Agreement include protection of forest and conservation, restoration, and sustainable use of natural ecosystem. Now, nature-based solutions offer a way of addressing the climate and biodiversity crisis in a synergistic and cost-effective manner. The rising level of corporate interest holds promise at a time when 44 trillion of the global economy is at high or moderate risk from nature loss. Nature-based solutions represent a key strategy to address the dual crisis of climate change and biodiversity loss and strengthen the resilience of the world's socio-economic systems. Nature-based solutions encompass a range of actions aimed at safeguarding, conserving, restoring, and sustainably managing terrestrial freshwater, coastal, and marine ecosystems while providing livelihoods benefits. NBS could deliver up to 1/3 of net emission reductions required by 2030. The stakes are high in a country where climate-related risk could cost the nation 3% of its GDP annually, and at an estimated 30% of the land is degraded with significant consequences of agri-rural livelihoods. Commitments made under India's National Determined Contributions (NDCs) to the Paris Agreement as well as the UNCCD include creating an additional sink of 2.5 to 3 billion tons of carbon dioxide equivalent through additional forest and tree cover and restoring 26 million hectares of degraded land by 2030. Nature-based solutions represent a promising and sustainable approach to tackling climate change by harnessing the power of ecosystem and biodiversity. These solutions leverage the inherent capabilities of nature to sequester carbon, regulate temperature, protect against national disaster, and enhance overall resilience. Here are 5 nature-based solutions that fight against climate change. The first one being carbon sequestration. Forests act as carbon sinks, absorbing and storing large amounts of carbon dioxide. Afforestation initiatives such as planting trees on degraded lands or establishing new forests can significantly contribute to carbon sequestration. Coastal ecosystems like mangroves and wetlands not only sequester carbon but also provide crucial habitats for diverse marine life. Their preservation helps combat rising sea levels and storm surges. The second is regulating climate patterns. Rejuvenating degraded ecosystems such as grasslands and peatlands help restore their natural ability to regulate climate patterns. Healthy ecosystems play a role in controlling rainfall patterns and maintaining temperature balance. Integrating trees into agricultural landscape through agroforestry not only enhances soil fertility and biodiversity, but also contributes to climate resilience by providing shade and regulating local microclimates. The third component is biodiversity conservation. Protecting diverse ecosystems help maintain biodiversity, which is very crucial for ecosystem resilience. A rich biodiversity ensures that ecosystems can adapt to changing conditions and resist the impacts of climate change. Is sustainable land use. Now, implementing sustainable land use practices such as rotational grazing and responsible agriculture promotes biodiversity conservation while mitigating the environmental impacts associated with intensive land use. In nature-based solutions, community engagement have multiple social benefits. Involving local communities in nature-based solutions ensure the sustainable management of ecosystem. Indigenous knowledge and traditional practices often align with nature conservation, fostering a harmonious relationship between communities and their environment. Sustainable tourism practices that highlight natural wonders can provide economic incentives for local communities to preserve their ecosystem, creating a win-win situation for conservation and livelihoods. The last solution is in urban planning and green infrastructure. Integrating green spaces and urban forest into city planning helps mitigate the urban heat island effect, enhances air quality, and provides recreational areas. Now, these infrastructure elements contribute to climate resilience in urban environment. Incorporating natural water management systems such as green roofs and permeable pavements help control water runoff, reduce flooding, and enhances overall urban resilience. The challenge to implement NBS is lack of financing. Private sector investment is acutely needed. Today, as is the case globally, current investment in nature-based solutions in India are largely public sector driven and fall short of what is required. The total funding gap is substantial, with an estimated $161.9 billion required by 2030 in the forestry sector alone. Four areas emerged that represent barriers to investment, the first being clarity on regulatory frameworks. Now, the clarity on nature-related regulatory frameworks that enable nature-based solutions investment, including the Green Credit Program, as well as the compliance and voluntary carbon markets, where companies need more information regarding the issuance, ownership, and international transfer of carbon credits. The second challenge for funding is land ownership complexities. Procedural support in navigating the complexities of land ownership and opportunities for trusted and functional multi-stakeholder partnerships, including with state government, is needed. Now, we need high-quality nature-based solutions projects. The availability of the high-quality projects with clear environmental and social outcomes with strong monitoring, reporting, and verification frameworks is important and crucial. A stronger business case adapted to each industry sector is needed that would help address concerns about uncertain returns on investment and high upfront cost and a lack of alignment between the horizon of nature-based solutions projects and the short-term financial priorities. Now a question emerges. How do we measure results from nature-based solutions? An evidence-based approach to managing and measuring results from nature-based solutions is important. This means monitoring and evaluation throughout the intervention cycle, drawing on science and data, as well as local and indigenous knowledge is must. What exactly needs measuring in NBS? Now, this depends on the societal challenges the nature-based solutions set out to address. If the goal is to mitigate climate change, the equations, the protocols, and the systems are well established to measure the results, with carbon dioxide being the basic metric used. A ton of carbon dioxide equivalent sequestered in a restoration project. Brazil has the same effect on greenhouse gas concentration in the atmosphere as a ton of carbon dioxide sequestered in a reforestation project in India. What is of critical is to look beyond climate and to also measure, and also monetize, for example, through environmental markets. The other benefits that the nature-based solution is delivering. For instance, when it comes to measuring the impact on biodiversity, the task is more complicated and multidimensional. Ecosystems are highly complex and dynamic systems, and there is no single high-level metric or a global goal on biodiversity equivalent to keep the global warming below 1.5 degrees centigrade above pre-industrial level in the climate realm. However, projects have a range of indicators available to them, such as trends in species population and the provision of critical ecosystem services. For example, water quality and predictability in a watershed that benefited from restoration or reforestation. Now, since biodiversity is irreplaceable and its loss may be irreversible, project results can be quite localized in nature. Nature-based solutions offer a holistic and sustainable approach to addressing climate change by recognizing the interconnectedness of ecosystems, biodiversity, and human well-being. These solutions contribute not only to climate mitigation, but also to adaptation and the overall health of planet. Integrating nature-based solutions into climate policies and international efforts can lead to a more resilient and sustainable future for our planet. As Mahatma Gandhi said, that our planet has everything for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. Thank you.